in the last 35 years. That, for me, is highly inspiring. But I must say, I am a bit more attenuated in my utopian proclivity. And this is where my own tragicomic sensibility comes in. Maybe here I'm closer to Chekhov than Beckett. They're very similar, but Chekhov strikes me as much deeper in some ways. Beckett, smarter, but that's all right. I'll take Chekhov any day. But both are indispensable. But what I mean by I'm a bit more attenuated is that even when I look at this motion, generating momentum, maybe social movements in the industrial world, but already now 300 million fellow human beings in Latin America under progressive governments. It's only 365 fellow human beings on the whole continent of Latin America. That's movement. Serious. How long will it last? Very concrete Gramscian analysis necessary to sustain the democratic elements in these movements, to keep Chavez accountable at the level of rights and liberties, but also at the level of focusing on poor and working people. Same would be true in terms of the leadership in Paris right now. Will the thugs take over? The thugs in the street, not just the thugs in Parliament. Thugs in Parliament have had their day, but there's thugs in the street. Or will the democratic elements among the demos be able to guide the movement in such a way that the kind of Socratic conversation between law and order on the one hand and desire for peace and justice on the other can take place, and what it means to go beyond that? So I think we have deep convergence and overlap in this regard, but I'm always very, very, I proceed very slowly and carefully in terms of even when these awakenings take place. Because it's such a fragile situation, and it's so easy for persons to fall back into the kind of dogmatism, fanaticism, and narrow parochialism that has been hand in hand with so much of what you call in the past revolutionary politics. But this is a very, very crucial moment, and I think it's, for me actually, it's historic for you to come to the States and come to Princeton at this particular historical moment. For someone who is an artist who's written 2 novels, deeply influenced by Melville, deeply influenced by Henry James, deeply influenced by Faulkner. Someone's written 5 plays, deeply influenced by Eugene O'Neill. It is a kind of homecoming, even though this is the first time you've come to Princeton. We're so very glad to have you here.
We can take questions.
Thank you very much.
We're going to open it up for questions.
In the front?
Oh, let me, is there a...
In the pink?
My question is, do you think trying to answer the question why, especially today, a political conception of democracy is so popular is important for revolutionary politics? I mean, to ask in a different fashion, do you think there might be a tension between trying to historicize hegemony and agency on the one hand, and universal claim of revolutionary politics on the other? Is it clear?
I don't completely understand the question. Is your question the question of the rule for a choice between revolutionary politics and another politics?
If there is, I mean, if we try to explain the hegemony, why, for instance, today, there is a more apolitical academic sphere or more apolitical social sphere. When we try to answer these questions, we contextualize the possibilities of agency. So whether there is a tension between the political subject's potential of acting and the context of hegemony, the historicity of that hegemonical context.
Difficult for me to understand.
Yes. Yeah, I think what she's
Yes. Yes. But what is your question?
well, that was just a description. She's just thinking what you thought, what your ideas would be on that.
Yes, I have always the same problem to understand the question as question, because for me, you propose something like a description, not a question, a precise question. It's difficult for me to answer.
Let me ask in another way. Like, do we need more hope or despair as political subjects? Like, if we are conditioned with the possibilities of, within this context.
In fact, the question of hope, that is a true question. That is a true question because the question of hope is distinct, is not the same question that the question of the existence, the real existence of a new process of truth, of a new political trend, and so on. So, in the Paulinian conception of Christianism, we have three theological virtues: faith, charité, what is it?
Hope, faith, hope, and love.
Yes, and hope, precisely. And it's probably in that sort of framework that we have to completely understand the question of political action today. In the classical revolutionary politics, we have absolutely the three components. First, faith, conviction. Because you have conviction that the revolution is a possibility. And sometimes that revolution is a necessity. So you have the subjective conviction that revolution is possible. Second, you have the question of relation to others, like love or something like that. And relation to others in the classical revolutionary politics is also perfectly clear. You have to talk with others and to rally, to unify them to the new politics, to the revolutionary politics. That is the militant conception of politics. And then you have hope too, because you have a great framework of all political conviction, which is the question of communism, something like that, the question of a completely new society. And so, in the classical conception, you can find, like finally in religious conviction, we can find the characteristics of a new subject. Conviction, subjective conviction, faith, relation to others, militant conception of truth, and third, a great hope, which is something like an utopia, or like something like the promise of the new society. I think that the question today is very difficult. Why? Because first, the discussion about the possibility of a new politics is different. There is no two clear politics. politics of imperialism against politics of socialism, or something like that. We have a complex situation in which we find interplay between reactionary trend and something else, but something else which is just completely clear, first. After that, the question of what we have to say to others, what is the militantism today, what is the militant contents of politics, is not so clear. And so it